Over the years we've seen countless editing styles blow up, and as it stands, the clean Apple UI look is now still in the spotlight. In this video we'll create 7 smooth Apple UI animations just using After Effects. But first, let's watch the final result.
Wake up, yes Lord, I'm thankful, another day on my schedule. Steady blocking the devil, I tell a hater, God bless you. What's your purpose? What's your passion? Did it pain? What's your plan? Is it plain? Wanna play? Hydroplane? I'm just playing. I beat my Joby, feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, cause I'm a star and they can't hold me like I'm Kobe in the fourth. Yeah, nothing is ever forced, we headed straight to the source. No middleman, little man, let me show you if you is lost.
To start off, I import the music so we can match it with the scenes precisely. You can also find all the assets I used in this video at the link below. Now let's bring in the alarm screenshot from the phone. This will be our visual guide for the scene. After reducing the scale to 85, let's enlarge our view panel to see everything in detail. Now let's grab the text tool, type our first line, which is wake, match the color with the screenshot, and match the font, which is SF Pro Light, and set the size to 151. With that done, let's place it in the exact position of the first clock. Next, we're gonna duplicate the text layer, change the word as alarm, and set the font size to 42. Our main goal is to create everything in this screenshot as a separate layer, so that we can control them as we wish. After place the text right here, we can go to the next one, which is the button on the right side. First off, let's grab the rectangle tool and change the fill color to green. Let's zoom in on the bottom area and create a green rectangle tool like so. Then we're gonna set the roundness to 41, and this is gonna be our main capsule. Next, I'm gonna grab the ellipse tool and change the color to white. Then we're gonna create a circle shape layer and place it like that. This is gonna be our button. Perfect. And the final thing that we're gonna recreate is the line to separate each alarms. To do this, let's grab the pen tool, turn off the fill color, set the stroke width to 2, and choose something like dark gray color. And I'm gonna left click around here and here. Now we got a line that looks exactly like the one in the screenshot. Once everything is done, let's rename the layers one by one, and before duplicate the layers, let's select everything that we created and parent link to the line layer. Then select all of them and change the label color to dark green. Then I'm gonna duplicate all the layers and choose a different label color. And open the line position and place it right here carefully. After that, we're gonna select all the layers and duplicate it again, and not to mix with the others, let's choose a different label color. Now we're gonna open the line position again, zoom in a bit and place it in the exact spot. And I will repeat this process for the rest. What I do is duplicate the layers, change its label color and place it. To not boring you, I'm just speeding up this part. Perfect. Everything is done. Now we can just go down and turn off the screenshot that we used for the guide. Now I will change each word one by one to match with the music lyrics, except for the middle one. That one will stay as normal alarm and will change its color to white. Let's also change the rest as well. With this being done, I'm gonna select all the layers except music, screenshot, and the line layers. If you remember, we parent link everything to our line layers. To give a position, we need them. After selecting rest of the layers, we're gonna hide them by using shy switch. Now we'll only see the line layers. To give a position, I'm gonna move the playhead right here and give them a position keyframe. Then, at the first frame, let's move everything to the right until it's no longer visible. Perfect. Now let's select all the keyframes and make it easy. And even make it smoother, let's open the graph editor and change their movement speed. By using graph editor, you can convert any type of flat movements to nice looking animation. Let's go back to our timeline and also enable the motion blur. And for our final step in this scene, we're gonna slide each layer from top to bottom with a 2 frame gap between them. That way it will look a bit more fancy. And once we finish the final step, here's how the first scene looks. Perfect. Our first scene is finished up. Let's go ahead to our next one. First off, let's pre-comp all the layers related with the first scene, because we need that to make a transition a couple minutes later. Also delete the screenshot as well. So let's go ahead and create a new white solid layer. This is gonna be our main background for the rest of the video. Then I'm gonna import the iPhone calendar screenshot from the assets folder. You can also find all the assets from the link below. Set the scale to 235 and move it down just a bit. We need to make sure it's in the right position because we're about to recreate everything from the screenshot. So let's start by recreating the numbers. To do this, I'll create a new text layer and write 2. Change the font as SF Pro Medium, set the font size to 45. Then let's change the color to gray and position it exactly where it needs to be. Then I will repeat the same steps for the rest of the numbers. It might take a bit of time, but not more than 10 minutes. Perfect. Everything is done. Now let's go ahead and create the red circle. Before that, I'm gonna change the color of the day in the center and make it white. Then let's grab the ellipse tool and select the color to red, just like in the screenshot, and create a circle shape layer right here. Then I'm gonna move this shape layer right behind the numbers in the timeline. Now let's go ahead and create new lines between the weeks. To do that, I'll grab the pen tool, turn off the fill, enable the stroke, and set the color to light gray. Let's close a bit and create the line from here to here. Awesome. Now let's change the name of the layers as line 1 and duplicate the layer. We're gonna place the second line to here and duplicate it one more time and place it right here. With this being done, now we can start to create the reminders. To do that, let's grab the rectangle tool, disable the stroke, and turn off the fill. For the fill color, let's go with something yellowish. Then we're going to create a rectangle mask like that and set the roundness to 10 to match the exact logo. Now let's go ahead and write our default reminder, which is gonna be work. Then we'll change the color to a slightly darker yellow. After placing the text and the rectangle tool around here, select the both layers on the timeline and pre-comp them. Now after finish the design from start the first day, I'm gonna create a twice reminder for each day and duplicate it until it's done. And good news is, it takes less than a minute. And finally, before start the animation, let's also mask on top of the calendar by using rectangle mask. This way we won't need to spend too much time to recreate this part. And to fit this part correctly, I'm gonna scale it up a little bit. And maybe to look even better, we can duplicate some of the reminders on the calendar, or we can remove some of them. With this way, it's gonna look more realistic instead of a flat look. Now that this is done, we can create our main reminder. It's where the lyrics will show up, and we will also use it as a transition into the next scene. I'm just gonna create the exact same rectangle mask but with a green color and adjust the roundness as usual. Then let's duplicate the shape layer to use it as a track matte for the lyrics. After that, I will grab the type tool and write the lyrics in dark green. Let's center the anchor point and place the lyrics right here. Now I'm gonna click toggle switches and set the text layer's track matte to the second shape layer we duplicated earlier. This way, the lyrics will only be visible inside the green rectangle mask, which is exactly what we want. Next, I'm gonna add a position keyframe to the text layer, and about a second and a half later, I will move it like this. And that's what it looks in motion. Finally, I'm gonna add a 1 frame opacity and cut the layer right here. So let's go ahead and create a new null object, and I'm just gonna select all the layers that you created and parent link to it. Next, we're gonna move the playhead right here and add a position and scale keyframe to the null object. Then about 2 seconds later, I'm gonna set the scale to 316 and center the green rectangle tool by adjusting null object position like that. Then select all the keyframes, right click and set as easy as. Then let's open the graph editor and make it smoother by adjusting the keyframe speed. Let's also not forget to turn off the motion blur for all the layers because it makes a big difference in this kind of animation. Great, now it's time to make a transition. To do this, we need to move red circle and the number on top of it. Let's grab these layers and put it right here on the timeline. Let's also grab the first scene we pre-comped earlier and place it right here. This is where it gets interesting, so pay attention. Step 1. Temporarily turn off the pre-comp visibility. Then select the red circle, open the fill settings and change its color to black. After that, turn off the pre-comp visibility back on. Step 2. Select the pre-comp layer and set its track matte to black circle. Move the playhead to this point in the timeline and add a scale keyframe. Then go back to where the motion starts and increase the scale until it fills the entire scene. Let's also not forget to ease the keyframes and make it smoother in graph editor. Step 3. Duplicate the black circle shape layer, make it visible and parent link to the null object. But make sure the playhead isn't in the middle of the motion when you do it. Then change the duplicated shape layer's color to red, move the playhead right here in the timeline. Place the shape layer above the pre-comp layer, add an opacity keyframe and set it to 0. Then move the playhead where the motion ends and set it to opacity to 100. And finally, let's also place the number right here on the timeline and add an opacity keyframe here, then a couple frames later, set it back to 100. And here is the final result. Perfect. So our next step is remove everything from the screen except the green rectangle in the center. To do that, I'm going to carefully select those layers in the timeline and add a position keyframe at the current playhead position. Now let's move the playhead a few frames forward. Starting with the red circle shape layer, I will carefully move each one out of the scene one by one. Let's also not forget the numbers as well. Now select just the first keyframes, set them to as is, and adjust the curve in the graph editor for a smoother motion. With that done, we've finished our second scene.
Wake up, yes, Lord, I'm thankful. Another day on my schedule. Steady blocking the devil. I tell a hater, God bless you.
Now before start the third scene, I'm gonna cut unnecessary layers on the timeline except the rectangle shape layer. So let's start by adding a roundness, color and a scale keyframe for our mask here. Then, about 20 frames later, Turn off the constraint proportions and set the scale to 225 by 185. Then I'm gonna adjust the roundness to 19 and change the fill color to black. And also let's select all the keyframes and apply ease ease, then smooth them out in the graph editor. Now let's move our playhead where the last keyframe is and cut the shape layer from here and move the second part on top of the timeline. Great, so let's import do not disturb moon icon from the assets folder and place it inside the rectangle just like this. Then let's type do not disturb by SF Pro display font and center the anchor point and place it here. And I'm gonna duplicate the text layer and write on. Center the anchor point and place it like that. And finally, change the color as purple. With that in mind, let's go ahead and unlink the shape layer, then duplicate it once. And I'm gonna select all three layers which is created and set their track matte to duplicated shape layer. Perfect. Let's move the playhead to this point and add a position keyframe for each layer. Then go back to the start and move them down until they are no longer visible. Let's also make easy the last keyframes and smooth them out in the graph editor. To look even better, I will add a 3 keyframe delay between each layer so they will open one by one. Then I'm gonna select all the layers and parent link to our original shape layer. With that in mind, we'll add the words from the lyrics here. I write the first one and place it like this. Then duplicate it to write the second word and place it here. And duplicate it once more to add the third word. Let's add a position keyframe for all the text layers here. Then move the playhead slightly backward and move each text layer out of the scene one by one. Then I'm gonna cut the unnecessary parts of the layers on the timeline, apply ease ease to the last keyframes and smooth them out in the graph editor. Let's also give a couple frame gap between each layer. Then I'm gonna write the last word. To do this, I'll duplicate this layer, write the word, set the rotation to 6, make it a little bigger and place it like that. Next, let's add an opacity keyframe and one frame later set it to 0. Then one frame after that, set it back to 100, then again to 0 and finally back to 100. Great. Let's go back a little and add a position keyframe to our shape layer. Then move the playhead about 1 second forward and position the shape layer right here. Then select all the layers related to not disturb and move on top of the timeline, so we can hide the text layers. I'm gonna select the keyframes and make it easy and smooth them out in the graph editor. Now let's go ahead and remove the text layers one by one when the shape layers is on top of the word. I'm gonna move playhead here and cut the last word, so it's not gonna be visible anymore. And I will do the same process for the other text layers as well. Now it's time to create our second part of the scene. First off, I'm gonna write the next line and center it by adjusting the position. Then let's add a position and scale keyframe for our text layer and move them here. I'm gonna cut the unnecessary part of the text layer and place it right below the shape layer. Perfect. So let's go ahead and add a scale keyframe here and make it extremely bigger to show only this part of the text and center it off the scene. And I'm gonna select all the keyframes and make it easy and smooth them out in the graph editor. Then move the playhead to this point in the timeline and lower the text just a little. By doing this, the way the text appears will feel much smoother and visually more interesting. Then let's add a cushion blur effect, set the blurriness to 28, uncheck the repeat edge pixels and add a keyframe. Then about 8 frames later, set the blurriness down to 0 to smoothly bring the text back into focus. Also, to hide the text, let's grab the rectangle mask tool and carefully mask out this part of the text layer. Then I'm gonna add a keyframe to mask path here and frame by frame I will adjust the mask due to position of the shape layer. Then let's duplicate the text layer and invert the mask so we can see the rest of the text. Now we'll make it shorter our text layer to the timeline and add a position keyframe and slightly move the layers downward just like this. After making it smoother in the graph editor, here is the final result. Amazing. So let's go ahead and write our next lines to our scene. I will write each word one by one. By this time they will be much larger and slightly rotated, and this will be the final position of the text layers. Now let's define the starting point of the lines based on the music, which is approximately around here for each layer. Perfect. To control all the layers on the scene, we're gonna create a null object, select the layers and parent them to it. Then let's add a position, scale and rotation keyframe to null object, and a couple frames later we're gonna center the first word to the scene by adjusting the settings. then move the playhead 2 frames later, add the keyframes to a null object, and a couple of frames later, we're gonna center the second word just like that. And one last time, I'm gonna do the same process for the third word of the scene by adjusting the position, scale, and the rotation settings in the null object. And finally, I'm gonna smooth them out in the graph editor by selecting each movement one by one as well. And with that done, here is the final result. Perfect. Now, before we start creating the next scene, let's get rid of these layers. To do that, I'm gonna add a position keyframe here and move them out of the scene just like this. Alright, that wraps up our third scene. Let's move on to the next one.
Blocking the devil, I tell a hater, God bless you. What's your purpose? What's your passion? Did it pain? What's your plan? Is it plain? On a plane? Hydroplane?
First off, I'm gonna cut everything from here about the previous scene. Then I'm gonna import iMessage screenshot from the assets folder and adjust the scale to 105. Let's go ahead and also import the message screenshot that I created for this video and place it like that. Then let's duplicate the iMessage screenshot layer and mask the keyboard area of the iMessage screenshot by using rectangle tool and parent link to our main layer. So we're gonna add a position keyframe to our message screenshot, and a couple frames later we're gonna move a little until we see the first message. Then I will select the keyframes and smooth them out in the graph editor. And I will repeat the same steps for each message by keyframing their positions. Of course, these messages are actually lyrics of the song and placing them according to rhythm. And here is how it looks after everything is done.
What's your purpose? What's your passion? Did it pain? What's your plan? Is it plain? On a plane? Hydroplane?
Perfecto. Now it's time to deep dive into 3D world. First off, let's turn on 3D for the layers. Create a new camera layer and activate 2 view so we can see what's happening. Then I'm gonna position and X, Y, Z rotation keyframes in the camera, move the playhead here, and cut all the layers. By adjusting the position and rotation settings, I'm gonna set the first camera angle for the first message. But keep in mind, there is no single correct angle for this scene. You can make it look even better by spending more time experimenting. Before making a camera movement for each word, we have to bring the screenshot properly first. To do that, I'm gonna go back a couple of frames and move the iMessage screenshot out of the scene by playing position and Y rotation. Then select the keyframes and smooth them out in the graph editor. And here is the final result. So let's go ahead and move our camera to the next message. To do that, I'll move the playhead forward by 1 frame and add a Y position keyframe. Then, a few frames later, I will adjust the rotation until the message is clearly visible. And of course, I will apply ease and smooth it out in the graph editor. For the next movement, let's add one more keyframe. Then, when the third message shows up, I will copy and paste the keyframe from the first message to match the same camera angle. Then make the movement faster in graph editor. And I will repeat the same process for the rest of the messages, with adjusting position and rotation keyframes, and especially with the graph editor. To keep this from getting boring, I'm just speeding this part, but by doing the same process for the rest of the messages, you will get the same result as I did. After I finish the main camera movements, I'm gonna create a new null object, turn on 3D, and parent camera layer to it. Since the camera layer has already a lot of keyframes, adding more directly could get messy. Instead, by creating a new null object and applying additional keyframes to it, we can add a whole new dimension to the camera movement, making it feel richer and more dynamic. And from now on, what I do is make movements more engaging by giving a position keyframes for null object. This will make the camera movements more natural and realistic instead of robotic movements. For example, some fast zoom-ins or zoom-outs by adjusting keyframe speeds on graph editor. Everything is placed, now let's check out the final result. With the scene complete, let's move on and see what's coming up next.
Is it plain? On a plane? Hydroplane? I beat my Joby, feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, cause I'm a star and they can't hold me like I'm Kobe in the fall.
So, let's start by importing photo app screenshot into the timeline and set the Y position to 931. To recreate the Photos app, the first thing I do is type favorites using the SF for a bold font and place it right here. Perfect. So let's go ahead and select the image, grab the rectangle tool and mask this little icon right here. Then duplicate the image in the timeline, remove the current mask and mask the other symbol right here. Then I'm gonna duplicate it once more, remove the mask and mask the icons down below one by one. Once all the masking process is done, we'll have total 5 mask layers for our scene. Great. So let's go ahead and move the text layer here on the timeline. Then select all the layers, move the playhead here and add a position keyframe for each one. Then I'm gonna go back a little bit and place each layers out of the scene one by one, just like that. And select all the keyframes, right click, convert to easies. Then open the graph editor and make it more smoother. Next, we'll space out each layer a bit, so they appear more smoothly with a nicer flow. Now let's close the keyframe settings and import our footage from the assets folder into the timeline. Adjust the scale to 71 and Y position to 869. And before adding some effects, I'm gonna pre-comp each footage one by one and name them footage 1, 2, 3 and 4. To make the corners of the pre-comps rounder, I will add a roughen edge effect and adjust the settings like this. Then I will paste the same effect onto the other pre-comp layers. Then let's select all the pre-comp layers, duplicate it, change the label color to dark green and adjust the scale to 6. Let's move the duplicated layers here and place them side by side just like that. Then we're gonna right click, go to the time and choose freeze frame for each layer. By doing that, the videos will behave like an image here. And we're gonna add a position keyframe here. Then go back a couple frames and move them out just like that. And don't forget to smooth them out the last keyframes to get a better movement. Additionally, we're gonna add a position keyframe for each layer, set to 0, and once the position movement is done, set them back to 100%. Let's also give some gap between each layer so they can open one by one. Amazing. Now I'm gonna move the main footage to beginning of the scene and parent them like this. Footage 2 is parented to footage 1, 3 to 2 and finally footage 4 to 3. By doing that, we'll able to control all the footage position in just one footage layer. Let's also move the playhead here and add a position keyframe to footage 1. Then go back to start of the scene and move them to right out of the frame. Let's select the other pre-comps and move them over here temporarily, just so we don't get confused. Then we're gonna select the keyframes, make it easy ease, and zoom it out in the graph editor. Let's go ahead and add one more position keyframe here, and move the second pre-comp layer where the keyframes is on the timeline. Then we're gonna open the second footage position settings and move them out just like that. Now let's move playhead about 20 frames forward and change the position of footage 1, so we can slide it out and bring footage 2 into the scene. And I'm gonna repeat the same process for the other two layers. With that done, we'll have fully completed animation for this scene. As you remember, there was some lyrics here, but nothing special. I just typed them out and added a bit motion. So to keep things moving and not bore you, I will skip that part. Now everything is in place, let's check out the final result. With this incomplete, let's move on and see what's coming up next.
Because I'm a star, they can't hold me like I'm Kobe in the fourth. Yeah, nothing is ever forced. We headed straight to the source.
First off, let's start by creating an orange solid layer. Then I'm gonna import the Spotify screenshot from the assets folder, set the scale to 83 and my position is to 1017. Our first job is recreate everything here. First, I'll start with the name of the song. To do that, let's grab the type tool and choose SF Pro Display Bold font with a white color. After we write the name of the song, let's zoom in a bit, center the anchor point and place it here. Let's go ahead and duplicate the text layer and write the owner of the song with a medium font and place it here. Then I'm gonna select the screenshot and by using rectangle tool, we'll mask both vectors on the screen so we can give a position to them. I will duplicate this screenshot one more time, change the Y position to 814 and mask the music control part of the image by using rectangle mask as well. Now we'll select all the layers and add a position keyframe here. Then go back at the start of the scene and move them out one by one just like that. Let's also select all the keyframes and make it easy and zoom it out in the graph editor. And as always, to bring the all layers to back in a cooler way, let's add a few frames of delay between each one. Now it's time to make the lyrics animation. Let's start with pasting it the lines and place it just like that. You can also find this on the assets folder. So let's duplicate the orange solid layer and place it directly above the text layer. Then I'm gonna mask this part of the solid layer and give a feather something like 73. As you can see, we can control the lyrics easily now. Awesome. Now I'm gonna add a position keyframe here and a couple of frames later to go to the next line, I will change the position and center the line just like that. To make it look just like a Spotify, let's apply easy ease to the keyframes and smooth them out in the graph editor. Next, we'll adjust the opacity to 50% and duplicate the text layer. Then set the opacity to 100%. And let's grab the rectangle tool and mask the layer until the main line. Now I'm gonna duplicate the text layer one more time and create a new mask that isolates only the main line of the lyrics. Then we're gonna open the mask path, pressing by P, and add a keyframe here. Then go back a little and change the mask of the main line like this. Also, I'm gonna adjust the feather to 80 to look much better. To do the same animation for the next line, I'm gonna duplicate the main line text layer, remove the keyframes, and change the position of the mask. Then let's move the playhead here and add a pet keyframe and close the mask. And around 1 second later, open the mask again. With that done, we'll finish this scene. Now it's time to jump into the final one.
Little man, let me show you if you was lost.
First off, let's import the Find My logo and circle image to our timeline. Then adjust the scale to 47. And I'm gonna add the rotation keyframe to the circle and about 1 second later, rotate it to 160 degrees. Then select the keyframes, convert them to easies and smooth them out in the graph editor. So we'll grab the pen tool and draw a triangle shape layer something like this and change the fill color to blue. Perfect. Now we're gonna parent the shape layer to the Find My circle layer on the timeline, import the map footage, move it up slightly and set the map as a track matte to the shape layer. As you can see, now the map is only visible inside of the shape layer. Let's go ahead and grab a rectangle tool and mask the map layer just like this. Then open the mask path and add a keyframe. Go back about 10 frames and close the mask as much as possible. As always, select the keyframes and make it easy and smooth them out in the graph editor. I'm gonna duplicate the shape layer and move on top of the timeline and turn on its visibility. Then move the playhead here and add an opacity keyframe, go back about 10 frames and set the opacity to 0. And let's cut the unnecessary part of the layer. To open the blue shape layer, we'll grab the rectangle tool and mask the layer like that. Then open the feather settings and increase the feather something like 200. I'm also gonna add an opacity keyframe to the map to make the transition smoother. Let's go ahead and parent link the shape layer to the Find My circle layer. Then move the playhead around here and add the rotation keyframe. Then about 1/2 second later, set the rotation to 180 degrees. Select the keyframes, convert them to easies and smooth them out in the graph editor. Perfect. Now let's select the map and fix the mask issue that appears when the rotation changes. To do that, I'll add a mask path keyframe here and 3 frames later, move the mask downward. Let's also don't forget to open motion blur to get the best result. Now I'm gonna go back to third scene and duplicate the text that I used and move them here on the timeline. To control all the text layers, let's create a new null object and parent link the text layers to it. Then we'll move them down here by adjusting null object position amount. One by one, I will replace the old words with the new ones, and then fine tune their final size and placement to make everything look more balanced and visually appealing. Let's increase the duration of the text layer on the timeline as well. Then let's add a position keyframe to the null object here and a couple of frames later move them down. And finally, I'm gonna import the Memoji screenshot that I recorded before on the phone. Then let's grab the rectangle tool and mask only the shark. After that, we'll trim the unnecessary part of the timeline. Let's also move that layer right below on the Find My logo layer so we can hide by using the map. And that's a wrap. We went through every step of building this animation, from masking to text movement to camera transition and smooth layering. If you made it this far, congratulations, you got yourself a complete scene. Thanks for watching and I will see you next one.
I beat my Joby, feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, cause I'm a star and they can't hold me like I'm Kobe in the fourth. Yeah, nothing is ever forced, we headed straight to the source. No middleman, little man, let me show you if you was lost.